Those of you who follow the webcast know that we had some very strong storms move through the area on Saturday evening. Now, we did promise to take a look at part 2 of that storm, the special feature that we did on Sunday, and yesterday's supporter stream focused on the first tornado, and that touched down near Rusk and ended around Reclaw, which was actually a little bit further south in that area. So here we can see the first tornado in progress. The second tornado developed right there around Mount Enterprise, which we'll cover shortly. It ended right about here, and then the third tornado developed near Carthage, and that little dot right there was the fatality in Deadwood. Looks like quite a hook. So focusing on Mount Enterprise, let's go down to that region. The damage started out in this area here, just west of town. The most hardly hit area was right around there, tracking across the north part of the town, and then over in that direction. So checking out the velocity. This is actually storm relative velocity. There it is rolling into town. You can see we don't have a definite tornado signature, but the meso certainly shows up. Large meso passing over the town. Right in that spot right there, we've got about, we'll bring up that little menu at the bottom so we can read out the speed. That looks about 66 in and about maybe 26 in. It's not a very good couplet. It's about 40 knots of shear, but as it passes over town, you can see the development of this couplet. That looks to be about 100 knots of shear, maybe slightly more than that, and that's probably displaced a little bit from the actual location. And that's something that we've seen with this storm. We are sampling it pretty high up at about 3,000 to 4,000 feet, so there could be some horizontal differences. And that's why I would not really read too much into these positions. A little bit further along, about 100 knots of shear right there, and the meso quite extensive, measuring about 3.5 miles in diameter. And there's some evidence that this meso diameter can correlate to the strength of the tornado. So by this time, the storm is looking like that right there, and it continues eastward. We'll just kind of follow that along really quickly. Goes through a few cycles there. Still quite a strong vortex, about 80 knots of shear there, heading into the Carthage area. And we can see some weakening through this region, so that area is spared. And then the third tornado comes together just southeast of Carthage. And remember, that's where we had that fatality. Storm is getting closer to the radar, which is helping with sampling. So even though we're not seeing the classic TVS signature, that could be a wide tornado. It's got the appearance of a compact meso. Diameter on that is about 1.5 miles, so that is getting into the ballpark of a wide tornado. The maximum width on that, 1,600 yards, which is up near a mile. Looks pretty compact there. And then we see some dissipation of the circulation as it approaches the state line at 8 p.m. The surface chart is showing a combined Canadian Pacific system moving into the northern U.S. and throughout much of the west. Got that cold front from Lake Huron down through Illinois and through Arkansas into Texas. Looks like we have a triple point just southwest of Abilene, and that extends south into the Del Rio area. It's not a very strong dry line at all. However, if you go west, dew points do fall off into the single digits near El Paso and Marfa. We have a low-pressure area near Albuquerque. That's a wave along that front, and out to the west in the lower Colorado River Basin, some gusty north winds. North winds at 20 miles an hour, at Blythe, and a very cool 64 degrees at Las Vegas, and even down to 56 and 41 in central Nevada. So that's definitely some cold air coming south. And out east, dew points are creeping up into the 60s in East Texas and Louisiana and into part of Alabama. The dew points are not very high up in the Midwest. However, there is a very stout southerly flow, so very likely we're going to see some moisture advection ahead of this cold front. Then taking a look further up north into Canada, powerful system near James Bay with cold temperatures and near blizzard conditions on the backside. Still some very cold air up in the Northwest Territories, finishing out that last week of bitterly cold weather. And we should see that change next week as that polar vortex breaks down. It is warming up in Alaska. If we take a look up there near the edge, another cold front coming through the area just east of Nome, but ahead of that, some mild temperatures in the 30s. So checking out the upper dynamics, it's a relatively simple pattern. It is progressive. We've got a ridge on both coasts and troughing in the northern plains. Also a wild card with this cutoff low out there off the coast of California. We have this trough going through the Four Corners area that's descending into the base of this general long wave trough. So likely we're going to see a bit of deepening as that reaches the eastern U.S. And just a quick look ahead through the rest of the week. Bring that forward. You can see how everything is shifting eastward. And there's that deepening of that trough into Tennessee and Kentucky Wednesday night. Lots of ridging coming into the Rockies and central U.S., so the weather should be pretty good through this area. However, with the approach of this mid-level system, I would expect some weather to start going downhill a little bit towards the end of the week. So there it is, moving across Southern California, and then into Arizona during the day Friday, and then into New Mexico and Texas around Saturday. Now, the effects of this upper-level low should be limited mostly to mid-level clouds. However, where there's low-level moisture, and that typically that's going to be in Texas this time of year, that interaction between the upper-level dynamics and the low-level moisture could spell some thunderstorms for that area. And a quick way to evaluate that is to check out the precipitable water with the remainder of that cold air coming into Texas, Louisiana, and the southeastern U.S. that pushes a lot of the moisture out into the Gulf. Some return flow sets up around Friday, and that's when that system is going through Arizona. So we could start seeing some interaction in New Mexico around Friday into Saturday. So definitely got moisture in place in West Texas, Central Texas. So we should see chances of rain start to go up in that area. And then the rest of the sequence here, the moisture really not going anywhere. In fact, it's continuing to come on shore there. 1-inch amounts all the way to the end of the period, at least as far as the 18Z run goes. And with these lower pressures in Colorado, cold conditions up to the north, that all indicates strengthening flow. So likely at some point next week we should see some storms going up in the central U.S. So those are all the key details you need to know. So let's put it together with the GFS forecast. We know that the front runs through this region right here, and we can follow along over the next 5 days or so. Some thunderstorms coming together in Tennessee, northern Alabama, and Kentucky. A little bit of upscale growth there during the overnight hours, and then those move over the Appalachians and into the Carolinas and Virginia tomorrow morning. The cold front pushes south through Texas, Mississippi, Tennessee, and then we get new development down there in the southeastern U.S., just south of Atlanta during the late afternoon, all the way down towards Mobile, Alabama. Not much extension beyond that into Louisiana. Pretty good push of cold air there, 1032 millibar high across the Dakotas and Minnesota, and you can see that 540 line, 540 thickness line coming all the way down to Arkansas. So there's going to be some cold air with that air mass, and yeah, there it is coming into the backside of that surface system for Thursday, producing some heavy snow in upstate New York and Vermont. Cold air into the eastern U.S. for the end of the week, but we know that that mid-level system is crossing the southwest. So this is peak heating on Thursday. See just a few blips of showers there around Flagstaff. And then going into the rest of the day Friday, I think that system is crossing this area here and coming into contact with some of that moisture starting to come from the Gulf. So here we've got max heating on Friday. Don't see much happening except maybe north of El Paso, down the Rio Grande into the Big Bend. In the overnight hours, looks like some warm air advection precip out there in West Texas. Then we get the heating during the day on Saturday. And thunderstorms, they really don't get going. So what is the problem? Well, yeah, there are a few thunderstorms right there, but it's just not very widespread. Let's check out a sounding in the unmodified air mass and start troubleshooting. And what we see here is a nuclear cap there. 700 millibars, temperatures of 7 or 8 degrees, and very cool conditions. So what's happening here is we don't have enough warm temperatures or moisture in the lower levels. So it looks like maybe a few elevated storms are possible. But it looks like the warm front itself is just too far south. Let's see if we can get that together later on Saturday or on Sunday, because there should be some residual instability, and just not really doing it. So it looks like kind of a dry weekend there, but the return flow does get set up. So we'll be pumping that moisture back up north, and looks like things are getting unsettled up to the north. 1032 millibar high up there in Manitoba, snow showers in northern Wyoming, Montana, and all the way down into Nevada. So here we go again with another Pacific system going through the Rockies. And that's going to be about 1 week from now. And I think that will do it for this edition of Forecast Lab. Hope you enjoyed it. So have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Wednesday edition. Bye-bye.